Lunar New Year dates about 3,500 years ago. It marks the beginning of the traditional lunisolar calendar, which is originally founded for agricultural purposes. More recently, it marks the celebration of the arrival of spring and the beginning of the new year. While many Americans refer to this holiday as a Chinese New Year, it's actually celebrated in other Asian countries as well as including South Korea, Vietnam, Taiwan, and Singapore. The customs and traditions vary by nation and even by region. Overall, it's a time to honor our ancestors and deities, feast on customary foods, and welcoming the new year. The overarching theme is the celebration of new beginnings to see out the old year and welcome the luck and prosperity of the new year. Also, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that many Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders here in the United States may not celebrate nor observe the lunar calendar, its celebrations, and the Chinese zodiac signs. The date of the Lunar New Year's is determined by the lunar calendar, which is based on the monthly cycles of the moon phases, rather than the Gregorian calendar, which is the current international accepted civil calendar. The Lunar New Year starts with the first new moon of the lunar solar calendar and will last through the first full moon, which takes a period of 15 days. This holiday falls at different times every year, usually ranging between January 21st and February 20th, and for this year, it falls on February 10th, 2024, which is next Saturday. In preparation for Lunar New Year, families clean their house to banish the bad spirits and welcome a fresh start. Then once the way for the good luck is paved, partake in various celebrations, from wearing red and decorating the house with vibrant red lanterns, red paper cutouts and signs, to gathering and witnessing lion dances like we did this morning, as well as hosting a reunion dinner to bring families together. These customs are said to bring in prosperity and good luck for the new year. Each year is linked of 12 zodiac animals. We do have, I saw on the back over there in the Northex. So if you want to check out all the different zodiac signs, they're back there. And it's also characterized by one of the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So for this year in 2024, we step into the year of the wood dragon. It is a rare and powerful fusion combining the strength of the dragon with the attributes of the wood. The dragon is a symbol of strength, power, and good fortune in many East Asian cultures. The energy of the wood dragon is believed to inspire creativity, making it an excellent time for new ideas and ventures. The wood element associated with growth, innovation, and flexibility adds another layer to this celestial blend. Like trees reaching skyward, it symbolizes upward movement, expansion, and a period for progress and development. Together, the dragon and the wood create a canvas for fresh beginnings, promising a year of prosperity and positive energy. This harmonious combination is marked by innovation, vision, and substantial growth. As we embrace the year of the wood dragon, may UCC and its congregation find inspiration in the dragon's strength and the wood's elements of flexibility to foster creativity and welcome progress. Chúc mừng năm mới, sức khỏe giàu giàu và gia đình hạnh phúc. Cảm ơn quý vị. Happy New Year's, wishing each of you good health and happy family. Thank you.
A reading from the book of Job. Hear what God's Spirit is saying to you. Can you draw out Leviathan with a fishhook, or press down its tongue with a cord? Can you put a rope in its nose, or pierce its jaw with a hook? Who can open the doors of its face? There is terror all around its teeth. Its back is made of shields in rows, shut up closely as with a seal. One is so near to another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another, they clasp each other and cannot be separated. Its sneezes flash forth light, and its eyes are like the eyelids of the dawn. From its mouth go flaming torches. Sparks of fire leap out. Out of its nostrils comes smoke, as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. Its breath kindles coals, and a flame comes out of its mouth. In its neck abides strength, and terror dances before it. The folds of its flesh cling together. It is firmly cast and immovable. Its heart is as hard as stone, as hard as the lower millstone. When it raises itself up, the gods are afraid. At the crashing, they are beside themselves. It makes the deep boil like a pot. It makes the sea like a pot of ointment. It leaves a shining wake behind it. One would think the deep to be white-haired. On earth it has no equal, a creature without fear. Here ends the reading of the words that God give us insight on God. May God grant to us wisdom and courage for interpretation.
So today we are celebrating Lunar New Year. And as we've heard, Lunar New Year is celebrated throughout the world, but primarily in Southeast Asia. But it has its roots in agricultural China from at least 2000 before the Common Era, BCE. Like many celebrations, it is born out of myth and legend, and the myth goes like this: that at the end of every year, the villagers in rural China would be terrorized by this beast. The beast was named Nian, and it was kind of a hybrid between a lion and a dragon and a unicorn. And this beast was a symbol of chaos, of violence and confusion, and it would come into the villages, and it would gobble up the livestock and even eat the villagers. And they were terrified. They knew it came at the end of the year, but they never quite knew when it would come. And so at the end of each day, they would lock up all their livestock and they would huddle in their homes, afraid of the chaos that could come. That is, until one day, there was this man who went and stood before Nian as Nian came into the building, or into the village, and he was dressed in this vibrant red color. And Nian backed down and ran away scared. As it turns out, this wasn't just any ordinary man, but a celestial being, an angel of sorts. And he told the villagers the secret to keeping Nian, the monster of chaos and disorder, at bay. It was to wear vibrant red colors, to sing and dance loudly and joyfully, and to sprinkle fireworks about to scare Nian away. And so the villagers began to do this at the end of each year: wear red, sing and dance loudly, use firecrackers to create so much noise and confusion that Nian could not come near. They even began to make their own little versions of Nian, lions and dragons, dancing to keep him away. And so these are the traditions of Lunar New Year. Not just about keeping a mythical figure away, but to keep away the fear of chaos and disorder, the unknown, but instead to live in the moment. You know, there's a lot of examples of creatures like Nian in ancient mythology, including in the Bible. So I was taking an undergraduate religious studies course called The Quest for the Historical Jesus, and we were studying all semester trying to learn more about who the historical person of Jesus actually was, the person who actually lived on the earth. And one of the exercises was for our professor one day to pass out little slips of paper, and then he asked the class, "How many of you believe in unicorns?" And he asked them to write their answer on the slip of paper so that no one had to raise their hand, and everyone passed the slips of paper back to the professor. Unanimous. No one believed in unicorns. Then he said, I'm going to pass out some more paper, and he did. And he said, now I need to tell you that in the book of Job, in Hebrew, there is a verse that says a one-horned animal, and in the Latin Vulgate and in the King James Version of the Bible, it's translated as unicorn. Now I want you to write down your answer. How many of you believe in unicorns? And tell me why you answered that way. And so he collected all the pieces of paper up again, and a significant portion of the class had changed their answers because they said, well, if it's in the Bible, it must be true. The Bible is the inerrant Word of God. I think that's the danger of biblical inerrancy, is it sometimes causes you to check your brain at the door. My answer, of course, was no until I see archaeological evidence proving otherwise, because would you expect anything less? So there is a unicorn in the Bible, but there's also a mythical creature called the Leviathan. Have you heard of the Leviathan? Yes, and we heard the description of the Leviathan in this morning's scripture. There are other occurrences of this type of creature in ancient Near Eastern mythology, but the Leviathan was kind of a sea monster, but more specifically, a dragon that lived in the deep. We heard the description of these scales that were so thick they were like shields on the Leviathan's back, that its jaws were so powerful that it could not be undone, and that you had to watch out if the jaws came cracking down on you. That has caused some scholars to say, oh, well, this is a crocodile, but I don't think that's what they're describing here, because it goes on to describe the Leviathan as this monster with smoke coming out of its nostrils and fire coming out of its mouth. It is meant to be terrifying, right? A terrifying monster of chaos and disorder. And I mean, think about living in the ancient world and going and looking at the ocean. Think about looking towards the horizon and having no idea what lay beyond the horizon. It's not like going to San Diego and looking at the sunset at the beach and thinking, if you go far enough, Hawaii's over there, and then Asia. They had no idea. It just looked like this vast expanse that was never ending. Furthermore, there were no scuba diving equipment. There was no submarine. They had no idea what was underneath the water. We still don't know a lot of what's underneath the water. And so it was a terrifying place. And ancient imaginations ran wild. What if the beast came out of that water and gobbled us up, the Leviathan? More than that, though, the Leviathan was said to be able to eat your soul once you had died. It was a truly terrifying creature. You know the Leviathan in the Hebrew Bible and dragons in the New Testament. I talked about dragons a couple of weeks ago, the seven-headed dragon being Rome. The Leviathan and dragons often stand in for powers in the world that bring chaos. But I think they are also powerfully symbolic of the human fear of the unknown. The unknown can be terrifying. It can be exciting. I mean, if you're going on an adventure, if you're entering a new phase of life and it feels freeing, liberating, exciting, the unknown can be exciting, but it can also be terrifying. Waiting on test results, for instance. Waiting to hear back from a loved one who you haven't heard from in a while. It can be terrifying not to know. And the ancients recognized this fear of not knowing. And so I think the Lunar New Year celebration is about driving away the fear of the unknown, driving away Nian, driving away the Leviathan, driving away the chaos and disorder, and celebrating, focusing on this moment, the here and now. You see? That's a hard thing to do. That's a really hard thing to do, especially if you're someone who thinks a lot about possibilities of what could happen. If you think a lot about what should be in the future, it is a real hard practice to be in this very moment, in the here and now. That is tough. But I think, as they say, that'll preach, because I think that's a very biblical message too. We are called to change the things that we can, right? To work for change where change needs to be had, to recognize the things in our lives and in the world that need to be changed and to work on addressing those, but also to recognize that there is a lot in the world that we have no control over at all. There is a lot in our lives that we spend time obsessing over that no amount of obsessing will ever fix. The call is to let that Leviathan, to let Nian go, and to be in this moment now. Because yes, the future could bring a Leviathan, it could bring a Nian, could bring a dragon, but it could also bring the dragon that we're celebrating with this Lunar New Year. The dragon that represents happiness and power and progress and good fortune. The truth is, you just never really know. And so it is being open to what God is doing in our lives. You know, I'm not one who thinks that God controls our lives, but I am one who thinks that God participates in our lives, that God is active in our lives, that God is a part of the world, and that if we are open, if we are attuned to what is happening in our lives and in our world, that God can participate in our lives. It's just being open to that. It's being open to encountering God in the world, in one another. And so if we are able to do that, we can drive away that fear and that chaos. Happy Lunar New Year, everybody. Happy Year of the Wood Dragon. It's an exciting year. It's going to bring challenges. It's going to bring joy. It's going to bring lots of meh moments. But here's the good news. We're going through this new year together. We've got each other. And God is a part of what we're doing. And so I am grateful for all of you. Happy New Year, and thanks be to God.